military training rifles. One of the most interesting facets of firearm collecting that blends historical collectors with rimfire collectors, with oddity collectors, all under the military collecting umbrella. Some fascinating aspects are origin and era. Both of these 22s are K98 training rifles produced during German rearmament leading into World War II. The Gustav KKW and the Simpson Model 625B. This was the 1930s. This example we're visiting with today has obvious iconic American design cues, but is actually also made in Germany in the mid-80s. What? Exactly. Let's take a peek down yet another rabbit hole. This one's so deep, we aren't even going to the bottom. See you in Wonderland. Serp Garage. The M1 Carbine. Definitely in the running for the title of greatest military rifle of all time. Chambered in .30 caliber carbine, this compact rifle came out of World War II a hero. And here at the Serp Garage, we have explored a couple of Marlin 22s that pay tribute to the M1 Carbine. We have the Model 99 M1, the Model 989 M2. And while these Marlins did a great job of paying tribute, they were hardly considered similar and weren't true emulations. And I have scopes on both of these because they both had a proprietary rear sight that kind of emulated the way the M1 Carbine rear sight looked. So I'll give them credit there, which, again, I don't have that sight. But again, while these were similar looking, the function is more traditional Marlin 22 overall. They had just these conventional bolts that you'd see on these Marlins or on a Ruger 1022. The conventional magazines, this the M1, the 99 M1 had a conventional tube mag even that you'd just normally see on Marlin magazines, Marlin 22 magazines, and even the 989 M2 here had a box mag, but with a traditional 22 magazine release, and conventional sights, like the front sights were just conventional ramp 22 sights. Nothing really, we weren't really talking about emulations here. Those responsible for military trainers produce some really nice emulations, as can be seen in our Bible of German World War II training rifles by Simpson. You definitely got to get this book and check it out. But let's go back a bit further in history than these 1960 Marlins, then work our way past them again, like a Tarantino movie timeline, to this Ivor Johnson, the Ivor Johnson EW.22HBA. Now we're talking. Now we have the bolt emulated. We'll get the M1 Carbine back up here on the table to compare. Nice emulation of the bolt. Nice, the sights being emulated. This is on the M1 Carbine is a very interesting, unique sight that we'll get into later and discuss, that they emulated nicely here. Definitely important for a trainer to have the same sight picture, The mag release, a very unusual mag release here with this rifle, with this button. they emulated it perfectly. And even though this is like a traditional 22 mag, like look like on the 989 M2, the bottom of it they made heavy and wider to emulate the feel of the 30 caliber carbine mag. The safety was emulated here on the Iver Johnson. The safety is a flip switch, which, you're looking at this and you're seeing a button here, but this is an early M1 carbine. And actually, they did change over to a flip switch. I don't have one like that, but I'm pretty sure it's on the same side and it looks just like this for the safety. This got replaced because there were guys accidentally pressing. You have the safety on like this here and you're ready to shoot and you got to take the safety off and you have these two buttons next to each other. From what I hear, there were a lot of guys pressing the mag falling on the ground when they meant to take the safety off at go time, which was not working good. So they switched it to this lever. So the trainer does have this later lever, which is emulated properly. And they copied it right down the look, the feel, and even right down to the oiler back here in the stock. They even emulated it. So yeah, what we got to do is explore some history. That's what we got to do. If you really want to get into these and understand them, it's a lot of history, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get started. Let's go back to World War II in Erfurt, Germany, pre-World War II. In Erfurt, Germany, when in 1922, Erfurter, and you gotta excuse my German here, okay? I'm doing my best. In 1922, Erfurter Maschinenfabrik, which was Erma, the Erfurter ER, and Maschinen MA is abbreviated to Erma, was established by Berthold Geipel. This company was an integral part of the rearmament of post-World War I Germany with the E35 DSM-22 trainer and also the KKW trainer. Both of these rifles can be checked out in the Simpson book, Training Rifles of the Third Reich Germany, can be checked out in there. Whole collector's niche on its own, the pre-World War II stuff. And Erma was also very active during World War II with their production of the MP38 machine pistol and the MP44 Sturmgewehr 44. And in February of 45, during the war, the RAF dropped 100 tons of bombs on Erfurt. And that was the end of that. That destroyed the Erma production facility completely. And at war's end, Geipel was arrested as a war criminal and underwent denazification. In 1949, Geipel reestablished Erma Werke in Bavaria, and in 1952, they acquired a screw manufacturing facility in Dachau near Munich for the purpose of servicing and manufacturing weapons once again. This sounds like a familiar story, right? His son, Rudolf Geipel, became leading engineer of the new Erma. And along with making household appliances, Erma was granted a contract by the West German government to service and produce parts for various Allied forces weapons that had been given to the German police by the Allies. Hint, hint. With the independence of West Germany in 1955, Erma was given permission to develop a new submachine gun. See, at this point, they wanted to keep everything all German. But in the end, the offerings by any of the West German manufacturers that they submitted were passed over in favor of the Israeli Galil. And this was controversially a purely political decision. This destroyed Erma financially. And in 1961, they were taken over by Fiberglide, a division of Lear Sigler, who continued operations under the Erma Werke name, and the Geipels were out. So between 1945 and 1963, West German police, border patrol, and Bundeswehr were provided with about, much as I can do my math to gather it all together, there's about 55,000 M1 carbine rifles that were gifted by the U.S. Department of Defense Military Assistance Program. And with that, of course, came the need for training. And one thing Germans were used to was a .22 rifle constructed to operate and feel like a particular military weapon, as this was very successful in training with their K98 rifle in the past. And in 1961, when Fiberglide took over, that plan was put into effect to create the EM1, an M1 carbine lookalike in .22 long rifle caliber for use as a training rifle. First to be supplied were the Austrian Gendarmerie. Erma Werke also purchased surplus U.S. Army ordnance tooling and machinery used during World War II to provide various parts for U.S. M1 carbines, the actual U.S. M1 carbines that were in use. So they were also producing that stuff. Now, during wartime, German inspections and proof marks were done by the German Waffenamt, but that ended in World War II. In 1952, West Germany established the Office of Bombardment. So if you're into like inspection marks and stuff like that, the German inspection marks and all that, you're moving over to a totally different set of marks and totally different place that did it. The reason they had this was to inspect them, to add date codes. And these dates show dates sold, not manufactured, which I think is the difference with the older Waffenamt stuff. So these dates are the dates that the stuff was sold and not manufactured. So under West German guidelines, that's how it was done. There was a nitro proof, a Munich proof, which was the Munich Office of Bombardment, and a date proof. So I think you see a lot of times you just see three of them, those three. Now the progression to Ivor Johnson model, the progression of this rifle to the Iver Johnson model in 1986 this is where the rabbit hole begins. I'm going to touch on it. I'm going to tell you a little bit of how they got there, but I'm not going to go much further than where the Ivor Johnson model leads off. And each individual importer here could have their own story. So I'm just going to give you a paragraph on each. And if you want to, if yours is the one of the ones I talk about, you can do extra research to delve into those specific ones. So Erma Werke in the mid to late 60s decided to offer a civilian version of the military EM1 trainer called the EGMI Model 70. Erma used a company to distribute these commercial models to Europe and abroad named Wischko Jagd und Sportwaffen and Company of Erlangen, located in Bavaria. These went to France. They went to Thailand, Pakistan, Brazil, Ecuador, and other places. And one of these places was the United States. And the distributor, the first distributor, one of these distributors here that got on board was LA Distributors of 1983 West 10th Street in Brooklyn, New York, USA. And in 1967, the Erma M122 carbine came to America as the M22. Now, here's the ad from this Brooklyn company. This ad says exclusively, too. So this looks like these guys were the first to get on board from America, from 10th Street in Brooklyn. $80 for these things. Look fun for the entire family. Interesting. Here's the spec sheet on it. These were listed as gas-operated straight blowback. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people would look at that and say, like, oh, that's stupid. They're wrong. Gas-operated. It's not. It's straight blowback. Well, we discussed this very recently that it is actually correct. It is gas-operated. Blowback is gas-operated, as the cartridge case is technically the piston. So you could say that. 6 grooves, right twist, 1 turn and 18.5 inches, 5.9 pounds. So now here's what happened. In 1968 came the 1968 Gun Control Act, requiring importers to stamp importer's name on the imported firearms, and serial numbers were had to be on them. And LA distributors used the top of the receiver between the bolt and the rear sight for their importer mark. But this didn't work out too good for LA Importers. LA Importers was owned by Louis Imperato and his son Anthony from Brooklyn. Forgot about it. The Gun Control Act of 1968 seems to have impacted firearm sales in general. You know, you couldn't just buy a rifle in a catalog and have it shipped to your house anymore, like this ad from LA Importers. You couldn't do that anymore. And it seems to have affected this company. They dissolved in 1971, but we have not seen the last of Imperato and his son. So keep them fresh in your mind. They will be back. So between 1972 and 1975, the M22 EM1 was imported to the U.S. by RG Industries of Miami, Florida. Of course, RG Industries incorporated in Florida in 1968 and imported various inexpensive weapons from Europe, including revolvers manufactured by Rohm. It's ROHM. You've seen those. Everybody either has seen one or knows somebody that has one of those. Some friend of mine asked me about one of those once, and I was just like, just dismantle that and destroy it. That's what should be done with it. They also went by Rohm Tool Corp and Union Tool Management Corporation. They imported very few M1 rifles from 72 to 75. There's a few examples that have been found out there, but they're not the majority it's actually kind of rare. They went out of business in 1980, but 75 is when they stopped the import. So somebody else had to take over, right? So from 75 to 76, there are a few examples marked Liberty in Los Angeles, California, with proof marks that are a bit of a mystery. The proof marks are gone. They didn't have the West German, made in West Germany stamps on them. There's been a couple of those examples found by collectors. Liberty. So from 78 to 85, XCAM from Hialeah, Florida, imported the EM1 with their import mark on the barrel, and also introduced Erma's ESG-22, which was the EM1 modified for 22 Winchester Magnum rimfire. XCAM coming out of the gate. They dropped these rifles from their line in 1985, and they went belly up in 1990. So from 1984, who stepped in? Beeman Precision Firearms of Santa Rosa, California. This was an expansion project of Beeman Precision Airguns to enter the firearm market with West German firearm imports. Some of them were these high-end imports that Beeman did, but this one not so high-end, but it was part of their catalog there. These from Erma, including other ones from Erma too, including a lever action 22, a pump action 22. These were other emulations of other companies' guns, to like copies too. And both the Erma EM1 and the ESG-22 rimfire rifles were part of this import. This idea that Beeman had did not last long, and not many were imported, which brings us to, drum roll please, 1986, 1987, and 1989. What happened to 1988? I do not know, but those 3 years is when Ivor Johnson of Jacksonville, Arkansas, imported and began sales of the Iver Johnson model EW.22HBA, which was basically the same EM1 but with a slightly longer barrel. And also, they were importing the EW.22MHBA in 22 Winchester Magnum rifle, basically an ESG-22. Both of these rifles, to be clear, were manufactured by Erma Werke in Dachau, West Germany, for Iver Johnson. And who on earth was the new owner of Iver Johnson after a lot of back and forth ownership stuff that culminated in 1985 by, you guessed it, good old Louis Imperato. I'm over here in Arkansas now. Yeah. Come on over. The Iver Johnson name replaced the Erma Werke on the left side of the receiver. Made in West Germany was placed on the right side of the receiver. The Iver Johnson Owl trademark was added to the top of the receiver near the proof marks. And the Iver Johnson mark was on the right side of the barrel. The round Erma Werke logo was next to the serial number. And got some interesting stuff for these here. I came up with a owner's manual online. That's pretty cool. And you could take a look. These things are easily found and downloadable. They have exploded diagrams with lists of the part numbers, operating instructions, technical data. What else do we have? Pretty interesting. That stuff's always fun to look at. So Ivor Johnson dropped the Erma Werke rifles in 1989 when they were taken over by American Military Arms Corporation, AMAC, who produced 30 caliber M1 carbines under the Ivor Johnson name and later the AMAC name. So somebody might say to you like, oh yeah, I've seen one of those by Ivor Johnson and it's just a regular M1 rifle in 30 caliber. And you might say, no, they're 22s, but wrong. They actually were taken over, and that was the company. American Military Arms Corporation made them, but under Ivor Johnson's name as M1 carbines. But not the same era, not the same Ivor Johnson owners, kind of like its own separate thing. Now, since we caught up to this rifle, up to this model, we're going to leave the rest of the rabbit hole exploration for another time, or explore it on your own. It includes other importers, change of date code types, stopping imports due to liability lawsuits, Erma Werke bankruptcy, rebirth, rebranding, kind of, and passage into the new century. This story lasts all the way into the 2000s. So, and you could find some interesting stuff if you look around online. They actually have like serial number lookups where you could check. Mine is a little weird here where it's like it's in a realm where it was listed as as Ivor Johnson, but not it's weird. I don't know why they split it up into a couple of different spots, but mine is an early serial number actually, And you could also find cleaning and disassembly, reassembly information. Kind of weird. Some of the aspects of this thing to disassemble and reassemble are kind of weird. So you might want to get some guidance either on YouTube by disassembly, reassembly videos, which there aren't any good ones really. Nothing against those guys that made them, but there isn't anything that's really detailed enough on YouTube. It's kind of better to do the write-ups are better from what I've noticed. So shooting, usually the shooting part of these videos is where things could sometimes get a little boring. But this one, actually, I wish I would have done more documentation for you guys. This one was kind of interesting in the respect that when I first got it, the magazine, just loading snap caps through it. My realistic snap caps. This company makes some nice 22 snap caps that you could use in a situation like this. You definitely want to be using totally inert rounds. You don't even want primers being active in, like you do in this kind of testing, because of bolts could close on the edge of a round and set it off. Who knows? But you could just tell from how they felt in the magazine that they didn't just get pushed out this way. You could just test the mag just by acting like your finger is the bolt picking up the round. So if the gun is made where the bolt comes forward and picks up the round and pushes it onto a feed ramp, like it does in here, you can see that in here the bolt picks up the round, and there's the feed ramp right there that it would feed it up into the chamber on. So the chamber was a little dirty. Cleaned it, polished it like crazy afterwards. I'm saying after I was having these problems. But the main problem was that the rounds weren't coming out of this magazine right. So here's what a trip to the range was like under those circumstances. Works until it doesn't. And they like certain kinds. All right. A 9-feeder. I don't know if you push it, you just bend it in half. Better to push it back into the mag, maybe? It went back into the mag for a second. It bent the head of the bullet. That's the problem. You gotta just get rid of it. Look at it, see? Bent the head of the bullet. Oops. No, and look, it won't go again. I won't take the next one out now. So weird. All of a sudden, it gets weird. It's almost like you want to blame it on the mag. Yeah, you want to blame this on the mag. think if I didn't know any better, I'd say those ears on the end of the mag, those ears here are too tight. That's what I would say. I'd say they're too tight. I'd open those up a little bit. Why would it do that? Why would it just not make the turn? Now, what I did was I got in here, I took a real close look at this magazine, and like I was saying, unfortunately, I don't have any before pictures really of what it looked like. I think maybe one that it just looked terrible. The edges of the magazine, and less is more. I could have really gone in there and really just started filing away and smoothing and polishing and going crazy. But all I did was really do a serious chamber cleaning. You see where the extractor hook goes into a little kind of like a recess next to the chamber. It always does that so it can push it up off the rim to park. And then when the bolt travels backwards on firing, the blowback mechanism, as the bolt's going back, the extractor slides down that ramp and hooks into the rim of the cartridge again and pulls it out. If it doesn't pull it out 100% right, it doesn't hit the ejector properly, and you get stovepiping, you get weird action going on there. So that needed some cleaning. That didn't need any working, just cleaning. But the magazine, it becomes an art. I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it's really taken years to understand the properties of these magazines and these feed lips, where it just almost comes it comes naturally. Like, you don't have to know the little ins and outs of each specific model. You just kind of get the idea of exactly how to shape it and test it with your fingers and see how the bullets are coming in and out, how the rounds are working inside. It's something that just takes a while to get a feel for. So I couldn't sit here anyway and give you an instructional on exactly what you can do with your magazine if it doesn't work right, because the nuances of every little problem with them are different, and you just have to be able to feel it out. I caution you to not just jump in because I had success this way and just start filing away on your magazine like that's going to fix the problem. If you have a similar problem than what I was having, you just have to kind of you have to kind of learn and know exactly what it is that was wrong. And I took pride in this, that I did a little manipulation and played around a little bit, and I also stepped up the ammo to some more powerful ammo. So you might look at it, you see I'm shooting stingers here in when the gun is quote unquote fixed. But when I did the original fix, I did use the same ammo I was having a problem with at the beginning. And then once that ammo was cycling beautifully, I said, well, let me step up. Let me see this thing looks like it can handle the most powerful. This could handle some snappy stuff. This thing was made in '86 after all. So it should be made to handle some snappy stuff. And yeah, it felt like it really wanted those. It wanted some nice snappy ammo like Stingers. So that was a good time getting it, actually being successful in taking my time to repair something. So yeah, this definitely functions well as a plinker, a gun to play around with, and take down to the sand pit and shoot cans with. But for a military surplus buff that loves military rifles, what an excellent 22 to play with, because this thing, you're going to be really hard pressed to find something that emulates the feel of an M1 carbine more than this guy. As a matter of fact, it emulates it so well that it actually emulated an issue that these rifles had. So if you take a look at the sight on an M1 carbine, right? Let's get out a piece of paper here and I'll draw it out for you. It's been a long time since you guys have experienced my great artwork. So of course, it just has a center post like most front sights would have. So when you're looking down, so say this is a peep sight. So when you're looking through the peep sight, you're gonna have to kind of put the tip of the front blade right there inside what you're seeing as the peep part of the sight, right? That's what you're going to be looking at. But what the M1 carbine has, let me probably be easier to do this with a marker. What the M1 carbine has is it has a post like this, and it has two wings that come up on the side like that. You can see it here. That's what it looks like. It has the center post. It has those wings on the side. Now, you're just looking through a peep. So let's just say, let me rip off a piece of paper here like this. And let me just create a peep. Let's see how big to make the peep. This will make it about that big. So let's just say this is the peep. So when you're sighting, kind of like this is all you really see. That's what you're looking at when you look through the peep. It's real easy to accidentally be over there or accidentally be over there. Especially if it's dark, rainy, wartime, bombs going off, smoke, hands are shaking, injured. I mean, any possible reason why when your sight's flying around like this and you finally see somebody in these sights and you shoot at an enemy, it's easy to be lined up like that. So much so that they changed it. They did something to the rear side. I don't remember exactly what they did to change it. I have this old one, and I remember I read this a while ago. I think they changed the rear sight maybe out of the peep status. I'm not sure. I don't really remember, but this was a problem for the M1 carbine. It was an issue. And what's funny is the first time I went to shoot it, let's see, where do I have that target? Do I still have that here? So here were some of my targets when I was down there shooting. Oh, unfortunately, I just stacked them up one on top of each other. So now I threw them out. I don't have them. But there was one round of shooting where I was looking on the wrong blade the whole time, and it patterned right here, and it at 50 feet, that's not really going to make much of a difference. It still would have hit like a man at that part. It would have been off a little bit, but you still might have hit what you were aiming at. But any further than that, and you would have been missing, and I can imagine that was a big problem, because even just me sitting quietly at a range, I didn't even realize I was lined up on one of these wings. So that's something that you would need. If you just said you emulated this rifle perfectly, but just put a regular front blade sight, you're like, it's just a sight. A sight is a sight. You don't need, train with one sight is the same as training with another sight. Not necessarily true. If you make a training rifle, you have to emulate everything, because you don't know what it is that could become an issue or a aspect of the training that needs to be addressed. And it's pretty interesting that I did that. I actually did accidentally what I had read about years ago, which was one of the problems. And of course, with my M1 carbine, I have definitely hit the magazine button and dropped the magazine on the floor when I meant to take the safety off. That has definitely happened as well. So those two criticisms are real. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the Erma. I don't even, what do I call this thing? What a crazy name, huh? The Erma Werke. Let's just call it the Ivor Johnson 22 M1 carbine. That's what I'm calling it. That's what I'm calling it from now on. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you all next time.